All right, hello everyone. So yes, I am Kinsey Dodds, and this slide has a bunch of links and information about me you can go look at later. My slides are here, http://kcdim/g-slides, and that's all that I'm gonna do about that. I'd like everybody to please stand up, really quick. We're gonna take a couple seconds to get the blood flowing. So put your arms out in front of you like this, both of them. And squat down and come back up. This is an air squat. We'll do 12 of these together. Okay? And count out loud with me. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Come on, count out loud. 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we're almost there. 8, 7, just kidding. 9, 10, 11, and 12. Awesome. Before you sit down, stretch up high over your head as high as you can. And stretch over to the side. And over to the other side. All right, and your body is telling you, yes, please do this again tomorrow. Okay, you can go sit down. Okay, great. This is exercise, and so that means that if you leave and you didn't get anything out of the talk, that's a lie because you got exercise. Ha! Okay, so just to set up some expectations, considering the fact that I actually changed the title of my talk on the GitHub repo like a week ago, and then I also kind of changed it a little bit more this morning. So feel free to leave if this isn't what you were hoping it to be. I'm going to talk about why Glamorous exists. And if you're wondering what is Glamorous, well, I'm going to talk about what that is also and some of the hows of using Glamorous. This talk is not about a library you can use without React. It's a React-specific library, but there are some really important concepts that you could adopt in any framework or non-framework that I think you'd get value out of that. So anyway, feel free to jump up and leave if Angular isn't your jam, or if React isn't your jam. Ha! So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. And so this is Glamorous, and Glamorous rocks. This is the website for Glamorous that the community is working on right now. You can find it at rc.glamorous.rocks. That's release candidate. It's been there for a little while, and soon it will be released, hopefully. We need some help, especially if you're bilingual. We're trying to translate this, so yeah, translations are welcome. So here's a little bit more about what Glamorous is. Here are some of PayPal's most popular JavaScript projects that are open source. The blue one that's going crazy right now, that's Glamorous. So Glamorous is PayPal's #1 most popular open source project by a huge margin. This is including Kraken. So that's kind of exciting. So let's take a step back and talk about why Glamorous exists, and then we can get into what it actually is. How many people here are familiar with css-in-js? Okay, it's this kind of movement in the JavaScript community to solve some of the problems that we see or that we feel with CSS. So we're going to find out what that problem is using a component. This is a toggle button component, and the way that it works is you click on it and it stays a darker color to indicate that the toggle is on, so it's turned on. You click on it again and it turns off. So how would we build this? In React, we put our HTML inside of our JavaScript. We've found that that's a really powerful way to express components, having those two things coupled together as they are naturally coupled anyway. And so here we have this toggle component. It has its own state, it handles its own events, and then it renders this weird JSX looking stuff with a class name based off of whether it's active or not. And then presumably we have some styles that will style it when it's active. So we're going to refactor that a little bit, and instead of a button, we're going to have a primary button component that we'll put in our CSS buttons module. We'll import that, and now it accepts an active prop. So now we don't have any class names or CSS in here. It's just a component that we're reusing. So that's kind of nice. Let's look at what that component looks like. Now we lose all syntax highlighting. I don't know why. If you know somebody at slides.com, please let them know that syntax highlighting for JSX is really bad. But yeah, so here we have our app button, and then we have a primary button. And each of these accept a class name. They default to it an empty string, and then they pass that class name to the class name prop, which ultimately gets applied to the button. So that way, we don't have to worry about the button class or the button primary class or anything. We just reuse these components. So that's great. But the big question here this whole time is, where are the styles? Where's the CSS? And so I'm going to save you at least 15 minutes, maybe an hour of searching, and just show you the CSS. It's right here. So you didn't have to search around for that. You're welcome. So here are some questions that I have anytime that I enter a project of any significant size when I'm looking at CSS, after I've spent 15 minutes finding where on earth it is. First is conventions. So what are we following BEM here, or do we not have any conventions at all in this project? Do we really care about nesting, or is that something that we're preventing? Is there anybody else using these styles? So if I make changes to this file, what impact is that going to have on other pages in the app? That is also a question that I'm concerned about. And yeah, if I do change these, what impact will that have? And then even more importantly, if I delete these, is something going to break? So I'm deleting a component that uses these styles. Is that the only component that's using these styles? And these are questions that are really hard to answer with any of the CSS convention or any of the CSS solutions that we have today. So let's talk about conventions really quick. This pit of success. How many people are familiar with what I mean when I say pit of success? Okay, so pit of success is, I've got a blog post from somebody who's referencing somebody else who said it in like 2003 or something. But they say that it's a well-designed system, makes it easy to do the right things and annoying but not impossible to do the wrong things. So that's the pit of success, is a situation where it's hard to do the wrong thing. An example of this is when I was doing Angular, one of the things that was not really straightforward was performance. So it was really easy to do the wrong thing with regard to performance. You'd nest a couple ng ifs and all of a sudden, or ng repeats, and all of a sudden your Angular app is slow and you don't know why. Whereas with React, I don't care how many levels deep I'm going to do an array.map, which would be like the equivalent to ng repeat. I've never yet had a problem with performance with React. It's never been React that's causing a problem for performance. So the pit of success for React is really wide with regard to performance. So let's apply conventions here. I drew this. You're welcome. We have this pit of success here. It's kind of narrow. And so to compensate for the narrowness of this pit of success, we have these little signs pointing to the success. And these are conventions. So these are conventions like, what should our file name be? Where should that file live in regard to the component that this CSS is supposed to be styling? So some people are really confused by the convention. They look at the convention, they maybe sort of understand it, but they don't quite find their way to the pit of success. Lots of other people have no idea that the convention even exists, that BEM is even a thing that you can do with CSS or whatever the convention may be. And then other people totally get the convention, maybe created the convention themselves, and are running to the pit of success because it totally makes sense. And often for these people, they look at everybody else and think, why does everybody else think that this is so hard? It's not hard. It's so easy. You just follow this convention and poof, you're in the pit of success. So wouldn't it be nice if you didn't need those conventions? And the pit was so big, you couldn't avoid falling into it. And that is what these people are experiencing here. And how you do that is by making the computer do the hard stuff for you. So let's talk about our components again, and components in general. So we have that toggle component, and by default this is the way it looks. And if we don't have our CSS applied to it, then this is the default styling from the browser. So that's okay. If we have focus, we get some focus showing here. But then if it's in the toggled state, without the CSS, it's impossible to know whether it's toggled. And I should also say that like visual changes to show state is not the only thing you should be doing. Accessibility would tell you also need to do some other things. But for the vast majority of your users, having the CSS not be applied when it needs to be is a critical fail. And so that kind of gets us to this point of, okay, so what is a UI component actually composed of? how do you create a component? What are the components or the elements that go into creating a component? HTML for sure, you need to be able to see the thing that you're going to be interacting with. JavaScript, you need to be able to respond to the interactions, and now we see that CSS is also a critical piece of the component. So all three of these things create components. So it makes total sense to put all three of these things together. If we're really truly separating concerns, we'll be separating components rather than the technology that compose up those components. So let's take a look at this CSS now. I very kindly put them together in a single file and style and script tags. And here's all of our CSS. Here's our components using that CSS. We're going to take this CSS and migrate it to css-in-js. Poof, migrated. And this is using a library called Glamor. So with Glamor, you use this CSS function and you pass a style object. And it resembles your CSS. It's really similar. There are a couple of differences that you can learn in like a half hour. Mostly it's the casing. Half hour is being really generous. You can learn pretty much all the differences in like 15 minutes. But the casing, you don't do kebab case, you do camel case. And then you put the values in strings. And there are some exceptions to that. And then also you have support for pseudo elements and media queries and all the same things that you would want to have in like a regular CSS solution. And then what Glamorous does is with the CSS function, it takes that style object that you gave it. It creates a real actual CSS string out of that. And then it creates a style tag, which it inserts into the head, and then sticks that CSS string in the style tag. And it is wicked fast. So what it gives you back is the class name associated to the styles that it put in the style tag, and then you can apply that class name to your component. So this works with like no build system at all. It works with like no framework at all. It's all totally framework agnostic. And again, it is wicked fast. So the really cool thing about this is now if I need to maintain the button component in my application, I go to where the component lives, and it's all right there in the one file. And if I wanted to reuse these styles across files, then I could do that with CSS or with JavaScript modules. I could put my styles in some shared folder, and then I import those. And the really nice thing about that is now all of those relationships are totally explicit. So the question of can I delete these styles? Well, you can if nobody else is importing it. Or can I, or what impact will changes to these styles have? Well, it will impact anybody else that's importing it. So these questions are answered just naturally because the explicitness of your CSS-in-js. So that's an argument for CSS-in-js. Let's talk about why Glamorous exists. This song and dance here of creating these components is kind of annoying. So we have to accept a class name so that you can provide some overrides, and then you apply that, and then you also apply the class name Glamor gave you. Then you also have this like several other class names that you could apply, and the real problem is that specificity becomes a problem here because it really kind of depends on what order the CSS was inserted into that style tag. And so like if there's a conflict, it's not really deterministic what styles are going to win. And so Glamorous was built to help solve that problem. And also the kind of the annoying song and dance of forwarding the class name and all the other props and stuff. So that same thing built with Glamorous right here. So here we're saying we want to create a Glamorous button, and we provide the same styles. And then we have this primary button that composes the app button. So we're saying we want all the same styles that the app button has. In addition, we want to override with these styles. So the primary button has a different color and a background color, and it responds to hover in a different way. And then in addition, it also has some dynamic styles where it applies the highlight styles if it's active. So those kinds of things. And then I'm going to show you some demos of how you'd actually use components like these. But that's the basic idea behind Glamorous, is that you can create components that carry their styles with them anywhere they go. And these components are highly composable. So it just makes building UIs really straightforward. And the question of, like, if you're going to open source something and how do I get people to use these styles, that's not even a question anymore. It's like when React came around and the question of how do I get people to use my templates? Well, that's not a question either because it's all right there inside your component. So same answer for CSS now, which is a beautiful thing. So let's look at a couple demos. Here is one of the big questions when you're using a CSS-in-JS solution, or where you're trying to think, okay, I want to migrate to a CSS-in-JS solution, is how do I integrate with my existing CSS framework? So here is how you would presumably do that kind of thing. So the Glamorous API allows you to provide a class name as one of the styles. That class name can be anything, and then that class name will be applied to the component. We can't make any promises about specificity or any determinism because that's left up to your own CSS framework, however that works. But we can promise you that this class will be applied, so you're just as well off as you were before. And then here we accept some props to this glamorous div, and based off of the type, we say alert dash whatever the type was. So those are the classes that are going to be applied. So actually none of this is CSS-in-JS. All of this is just regular CSS stuff, which is kind of cool because it means that you have this alert component that carries those class names with it, and you don't have to worry about constructing that alert component. From there, you use it like this. You say, I'm going to use my alert component, and the type is success, or info, warning, danger. And if we look at what that looks like, it's like this. That's what it looks like. And yeah, so integrating Glamorous with your existing CSS solution is, I feel, fairly straightforward. It's just a matter of using this Glamorous component factory to create a component that carries the class names with it. And then for a little bit nicer API, as just kind of a bonus here, I don't like saying type equals something. I just like putting the prop right on it. So you can do something like that as well. It just requires a little bit more from your dynamic style capabilities here. So, all right, so then for media queries, one of the cool things about media queries is with the power of JavaScript, you can use CSS or JavaScript modules to share media queries throughout your application. So I could presumably put this media queries thing inside of another module, and then I import the phone media query. And then I can apply the media queries right in my CSS-in-JS. And I don't have to care about what the max width is and any of that stuff. And that media query is explicit. So if I'm thinking, okay, we're kind of phasing out the phablet media query or something, where are all the places that are using that? It's really easy and straightforward because it's all very explicit. And so here we can see a little demo of that. Let's split this. Hello, media queries. Woohoo! So, and it all works. Just as well as regular CSS, because that is actually what it is. It's just normal CSS. The source is coming from JavaScript, but it's just normal CSS. Okay, cool. So then we have animations. That's another really necessary thing on the web. And because Glamorous is built on top of Glamor, you have access to all of the powerful, wonderful things that Glamor provides. And one of those things is the ability to create keyframes. So you say css.keyframes, you define them just like you would in CSS, just with a slightly different syntax. And then you reference that keyframe inside an animation property. So what I think is cool about this is now the keyframe, I don't actually care what the name of that animation or that keyframe animation thing is. I just take that and I apply it to this. The nice thing about all of this is there are so many things that you don't need to worry about anymore. You just don't, I don't care about them. Like I don't care about a convention for my class names. I don't need them because I don't even see class names ever. Yeah, so I think that's pretty neat. And the same goes with our animations. So we can see that. Glamorous rocks. Yeah. So I've just got a minute or two left here, but I'm going to talk about theming really quick. So with theming, you can have a theme object, and then you have this theme provider, just like you would with React Router or Redux. Have this provider forward that theme along, and then that can be dynamic. So you, if you needed to have a special theme for a user that can turn something on, turn something off, then you could make this app a stateful component, and then it could update the theme dynamically. So what's cool about this is inside of your Glamorous components, you can reference the theme in a dynamic CSS object, and we can get the primary color for the title and the secondary color for the subtitle, and then the tertiary color for the paragraph text. You can do font size, media queries, all kinds of things can go inside of this theming thing, and then you can use that theme everywhere. And on top of that, you also have this higher order component that you can use to provide the theme to components that don't have, that are not Glamorous components. So let's take a look at that. What that looks like. These are PayPal colors. Woohoo! Hello, from with theme. We love Glamorous at PayPal. So let's really quick, let's say that somebody at PayPal decides we're changing our colors. And so we're going to go from one theme to another. And poof, we've changed all of our colors. So these are the new colors. Update all of your CSS. And for us, that's really easy because it's all within the theme. It's pretty cool. No, I don't want to save that. Thanks. Okay, so one other thing you probably didn't even notice. Server-side rendering. This is an iframe, and it loaded so fast you couldn't tell. So the Glamorous website is using server-side rendering. In fact, it's not even server-side rendering. It's server-side generated application. So we generate static files and just put them up on a server, and it's applying all of our CSS right in a style tag. So like you look at the index HTML, and that's all of the CSS is right in the style tag. Cool thing on top of that is that we only send the CSS that's actually necessary for the page you're viewing, and that's possible because it's all because Glamor knows exactly which styles are being referenced in the components. It knows which ones were actually rendered, which is super duper awesome. So like all that critical CSS stuff that we spend like forever trying to make work, you don't even need to worry about that because it's all written in JavaScript. We have so much more power to be able to control that. And so yeah, the Glamorous website is ultra fast, and yeah, not much more to say about that. Server-side rendering is pretty cool though. One last thing that I want to talk about before my time is up, which it already is testing. So this is I think this is the thing that won Jamin over finally, was the testing. Yeah. So so the testing story is really awesome. How many people have tried to do regression testing with CSS? Yeah, there's like one hand wavy. We don't do it. Why? Because it's so hard. The way that you would do it is you load up a browser, you render your component, and you take an actual screenshot, then you save that to disk. Then the next time you load it up, you render it, you take a screenshot, and you diff it. And there are tools to do this, and it's really, really, really flaky and really, really, really hard to do. So the cool thing is now that our components carry their styles with them, and we render those, we can, at the time of our tests, look at all of the styles that were rendered in relation to the actual HTML that was rendered, and show you in a just snapshot what styles are going to be rendered with the prompts that you provided and that kind of thing. And then when you make a change, we'll run all of those tests again and show you what CSS is going to be updated. So I think that actually is really super duper legit. And so one of my favorite parts about css-in-js is that it gives us this power. So regression, like CSS regressions, can actually be caught. Oh yeah, one last thing that people always wonder about with performance is it's really insanely fast. It is just so incredibly fast. This is updating the CSS or the class name on a Glamorous element 60 times a second. I had to throttle my computer down to like 15 times slower than it is to see any degradation in performance. So Glamorous is fast. Okay, bunch of resources, and there are my slides. Thank you. Oh, one last thing. I have stickers on the back, Glamorous stickers. There's a really cool hex sticker that you can get. So some of you hex folks, and a Glamorous sticker as well, square. They're pretty cool. Okay, bye.
You have like 1 minute for questions.
Oh, I have a minute for questions. Oh, and I also have a Glamorous shirt. You can find these on the Glamorous README. You can buy them.
Do you get paid if someone buys a shirt?
I do not. No, I made sure of that. It actually, my slice of the whoever made it, I had them donate that to Girl Develop It. So yeah. Any questions? Yeah.
Is there a way to extract the style tag?
Yeah, so the question is it possible to extract the CSS that would be generated into an actual CSS file and load that? Yes, that is possible. There are a couple ways you could do it. If you did server-side rendering, then that's just like natural. It's easy to do that. If you're not doing server-side rendering, then you have to do some sort of pre-compilation step, and there is some work being done to do that. If that's super-duper important to you, then I would actually recommend looking into this new library called Emotion, which is like really cool. It's actually not used in production anywhere yet, but it's pretty cool.
Just use it.
Yeah, you just use it. But I would say before you even go down that road, just try it, because I kid you not, we have a list of like at least 10 other things on our team that are impacting performance more than Glamorous. So it's probably not worth the effort.
All right, give it up for Kent.